All right. Let me get all this stuff fired back up. I had to get up and run out of here. It's getting, storm is coming in, and I had my chickens out in the yard, and I'll be damned if they hadn't gone back in their coop yet. Oh, so I had to go chase them all back in and get them inside for them. Picking up chickens in a storm later, and I don't want to do that because it's turning nasty. Happy Father's Day. What's going on, River? How are you? All right. Get this show on the road. Happy Father's Day to you as well, Tyke. Thank you, River. All right. As always, this week's episode is brought to you by Deep and order just about everything you'll need to get into the woods this fall, from fully custom rifles built in-house to flashlights to help you find your way in the dark. And be sure to tell them that UPO sent you. This week, we're going to talk about R3. And for those that don't know what R3 is a acronym that stands for Recruitment, Retention, and Reactivation. It refers to a coordinated national strategy aimed at growing participation in hunting, fishing, and shooting sports and wildlife-associated recreation. Right? It was the North American model for conservation is largely funded by consumptive users, hunters and fishermen, through different excise taxes, which we talked about before. I think we talked about Pittman Robertson, Dingle Johnson. I'm almost positive we have that. And when we talked about North American model, how it's funded, right? Funded through Pittman Robertson, Dingle Johnson, and license sales. And then all that money gets divvied up back to the states, so on and so forth. So that was the whole point of R3, was to bring more people back into the sport through recruitment, keeping the existing participants in the sports active and engaged, and bringing lapsed participants back through reactivation. So, and is very successful. I think almost every nonprofit in the space has some form of R3 program. A lot of the states have R3 programs, and a lot of times you're going to see like the recruitment being like, it's going to focus on outreach and education and breaking down the access barriers, whereas the retention might involve mentorship programs, better access to, land and waters, or simplifying regulations. And then reactivation is just you getting people who used to hunt and fish or shoot, but stopped for various reasons, time, cost, family, etc., getting them back into the sport. So it's worked really well. And I think, for me personally, I think that's a good thing. But I'm going to talk about, when we spoke a couple weeks ago about the hunting on military bases. We had some people down in the comment sections of that post Well, now next show, you're gonna be whining about people in your secret spot or your spot. I'll never be the person that'll cry to you about too many people on public land. That is a part of R3, and I think that's one of the biggest, I guess, downfalls, right? It's kind of a, it just doesn't work out. If it's working, then you're going to end up with more people in the woods than before. But when it's also working, you end up with more people at the legislative meetings as well, which is where we really need people. Now, ultimately, I guess the best hunters are the ones that show up to these meetings, but then don't ever go to the woods. But to think that hunting is safe and to advocate for not getting more people on our side because you don't want someone in your spot on public land is a bit foolish. However, I also think that with the development that we see now, well, it's become really popular for to lease land, and not necessarily. Well, it's always been fairly popular to lease land, especially down here in the Southeast. But it's become more popular now for the landowner to go through these land leasing agencies, which I guess if I was a landowner, I mean, it would be probably better to go through that. Maybe they get more per acre, make more money. But I'm not 100% sure. It seemed to me at one point that finding private property to get a hold of, even if you were paying for it, you weren't paying an arm and a leg. But for 20 and 30 years out, because they want to raise the prices so much, what's Matt have to say? Based on the latest data, licensed hunting permits account for approximately 4.7% of the U.S. population, actual hunters. 14.4 million make up about 4.2% of America. Yeah, that's really not bad. $4.2. I'd be curious to see how much. So you can't just Google how much public land is available, because there is public land, but it's not all accessible and it's not all huntable. And then you try to get super niche, you probably make ChatGPT figure it out if you kept giving it the right query. How much available and accessible public land is there in the huntable public land is there in the United States, right? Because of course you're going to have landlocked public, which is, I think, stupid. But because you can't drive into it, you can't fly into it, you can't land on it, because you could skydive into it and skyhook out of it. But yeah, I don't know. So and I guess another complaint they have is quality over quantity, or quantity over quality, and you're getting R3 often prioritizes increase of participation numbers without equal focus on fostering ethics, stewardship, or deep engagement. I don't know about that. I think most R3 programs are a little better on the trying to focus. At least any that I've participated in, we're fairly good about focusing on ethics and stewardship. I don't know necessarily about deep engagement, because it's such a fleeting moment that you're there, right? least the ones I've been to. But I do think that there is a generation of hunters coming up right now that is teaching themselves or largely learning from the internet, which even then you may be dealing with a self-taught person teaching others. Essentially, you've got bad habits teaching bad habits. Now, whether that, I don't think that's intentional, but it's just not good. And then your pressure, like I said, pressure on public lands and wildlife. The number 2 drawback to R3 is concerns as more people are recruited into hunting and fishing. They may be increased competition and pressure on public hunting lands and water access, wildlife populations, and areas with limited management capacity, and this could create tension between new and longtime users. Yes, but I when I hear that, I think about like Emerald Marsh. Oh, I'm spot burning. It's the worst kept secret in the state of Florida. Everybody knows it's there. There, to my knowledge, there aren't any states that don't publish where their public lands are and what times they're open and available to hunt, and the routes in which you can access them. So anyone who wants to do a little bit of research can go out there and figure it out on the state's website. But with you talk about like pressure on public land and water access, that place gets slam packed. And because I know that, I don't go there. I avoid duck hunting in that place like the plague. Been there a few times, a youth hunt, maybe, whatever. But outside of that, no thanks. And don't get me wrong, you can still get out there and get on some ducks, but it takes a lot of work. It's not easy. Then you're fighting everybody else for it too. I hunt for peace, so I'm not going out there. I see people quite often when I'm deer hunting. I'm trying to think of the last time I saw somebody from when I was in the tree stand. That was at a local WMA here. But I was hunting over the hiking trail. That's where the deer sign was. Deer didn't care. People didn't know I was there. Whatever. Hunting within sight distance of where their nature trail was not closed to hunting. Obviously not closed to hiking either, but I could see the hiking trail from where I was. I wasn't hunting on the hiking trail, but I could see the hiking trail from where I was, so I saw people. It doesn't bother me. Doesn't bother me. Doesn't bother the deer. If you know you're in a pressured area and you see people moving around, I mean, I've had people walk up on me late when I was hunting on Fort Campbell multiple times. There, probably more than anywhere else. I've had to deal with people walking in on me late, walking in late, leaving what I would consider early in the morning, walking past you. There's nothing you can do about that. Right, hunted right by the trail last year, and you shoot it 20 minutes after somebody goes past. They don't care. Especially if you're on a walking trail like that where they see people every single day. They do not care. Not one bit. And besides, if they're used to seeing us, maybe get away with a few things that you wouldn't otherwise get away with. Hunt the deer sign, man. You don't have to go 3 miles deep in the swamp to kill a deer. If you think I was hunting on that trail because I saw a doe sign, you'd be mistaken. The deer are there. They don't care. I feel like we care more about people in the woods than the deer care about them, especially when they're there all the time. Matt says, same story for me. Had two loud hikers talking and smoking. 15, 20 minutes later, a small buck came down the same trail. There is an element to it of needing to cover your scent and watch your wind and not make noise. But I also think when you get into an area like, oh, okay, so I hunted a cantonment area on post at Fort Campbell one time. I could see a gas station. I was 50 yards from a gas station. Had a road on one side, and I watched 30 or 40 does just wander around through those woods the whole time. Did not give a crap. Had a road on my left side, and like a U-turn, like the road came from my left side, went around behind me and to my right side. I was sitting up on a point in these woods looking back down into the woods and had the gas station directly behind me. And where the road cut behind me, it made like a little triangle island of woods that was probably 30 feet across, very small. And I had two does that stayed in that island all morning. I was waiting for them to cross from behind me so I could smoke one with my bow. Wouldn't cross. They stayed there all morning until I got down. Then they went and ran across the gas station parking lot. They don't care. If you're where people, they're used to seeing people, they could give two craps. That's when you go out in the middle of the back country and you're 6 miles deep and they smell a human, then they're a bit concerned. I just realized I got a lot of, it was not intentional. The funding and resources trade-offs. It says R3 initiatives take significant resources, staffing, promotion, gear, land access, mentorship, etc. And critics argue that the money spent on R3 could divert funds from habitat restoration, non-game species, or scientific research, which is probably true. But my opinion of that is get your non-consumptive user to pony up cash for non-game species. I know a lot of the funding from hunting and fishing goes towards non-game species, and I have zero problem with that whatsoever. In fact, I love that. I love that goes to that, because then you can turn right around to people who would love to hug insert whatever critter here, and you tell them, yeah, that's great. You, as a hunter, have contributed more funds to said critter than they have, likely. So I like having that in my back pocket. It is what it is. I can't stand what's Steve Rinnella's brother's name, Matt. He hates on he doesn't like the fact, he doesn't like what his brother does. He was cool with it at first, and then Steve got a TV show, or Steve had a TV show for a while. The podcast caught on. The Netflix picked up the TV show, and then Matt Rinella wanted nothing to do with it. Now he's got his own podcast. What's it called? Like Hunt Quietly or something, that's anti wanting you to go hunting, but they still talk about hunting. I'm not sure how that. I've listened to a few of them. I'm not a huge fan. Nothing against the guy, but it just seems very hypocritical to hate on him for the amount of people that he has brought to the sport, than to just turn around and kind of do the same thing. You build your own fan base strictly based on not wanting to bring people to the sport. This goes back to the same thing as blaming Duck Dynasty for ruining duck hunting. This is all along the same lines. You blame R3 for making public lands more packed. I think that what has actually happened is with the advent of social media, more people are getting involved in hunting, and more people are getting involved in hunting to a more difficult level. I think back in the day, I'd have to look and see what the numbers were then versus now. And I'm sure there was a difference, or percentage-wise, the amount of people that hunted in the 60s, 70s, 80s. I'd be willing to bet it was a higher percentage than it is today, but maybe a lower number. Regardless, you have people who are getting into hunting and with the limited access and availability of private land everywhere, they're turning towards public land. So therefore, you're seeing more people there. Those people would have got into it the same as they would have 40 years ago, which 40 years ago is only 1985. Whew. So we'll say 50 years ago, the same amount of people would have got in then as they do now. But the difference in then and now is the availability of private land, the ability to walk up. People being more trusting of a stranger, or you had. See, I don't even know that it's that. It really could all boil down to more of the social media and the smartphones. You're used to more face-to-face interactions with people, so people understand how to communicate. You go up and you shake hands and you ask, "Hey, can I hunt some property here?" Need to get some coon. Dan says I need to get some coon hounds and grow up tyke. Tyke foreskin. Yeah, you know what, Dan? I need to come up there and we'll run get on some bears up there with you and run some coons. But the availability of access to private land has gone down significantly, for sure. It's not as easy now to go and just knock on a door and ask for permission. You don't get a yes as easily as you used to. And part of that probably due to so many lawsuits. Everybody's afraid you're going to get hurt and then going to sue them, and then now they're going to lose their land. And then a lot of larger tracts are not owned by individuals much as they're owned by corporations. And then you go back to the lawsuit thing again. All you can do is ask. And I can tell you, knocking on a door, meeting face to face, and physically shaking a hand is going to get you a lot further than sending an email. Because if I had a big piece of property and it was just me, I would be more inclined to allow you to come out and hunt. If you were to come knock on my door, if you sent me an email and the headline read, "I'd like to hunt your property," I'm just going to delete. I'm not even going to read it. It seems too. It's so impersonal. What we need to focus on with people, I think, and I agree with the R3 thing, is to focus on quality, teaching safety, teaching not, ethics, and also etiquette, which I think is lost. You both, like to say, I could not agree more that when somebody comes out and they're like, it's public land. Yeah, you can do what you want. It's public land. I can be pissed you're in my spot, but it's public land, and you can wander in here because it's public land. It's not mine. It's not yours. It's not your spot. It's not my spot. But it's just common decency that says you pull up to a spot, and you say, "Oh, somebody's here," and then you get out, and instead of just trying to race out of the parking area to go get into the woods, it might be worth saying, hey, this is my game plan. What's yours? I want to try and avoid stepping on each other's toes. So let's do it this way. And I mean, it almost feels like playing poker when you do that, because you don't want to give away where your spot is. But you also don't want to let them talk first, because it feels like if you speak it into existence first, then you had the idea first to go to that spot, in case you both had the idea to go to that spot. And the problem with hunting is that we're all hunting sign of some kind, right? So you're hunting water, you're hunting a trail, you're hunting a feed tree. Those are all things that are going to stick out to a hunter with any sense. So like I said, you ride that fine line of whether you speak first or they speak first. Then you give up your thing. But I would say always go into the woods with a plan A, a plan B, a plan C, and a plan D. And expect for all of those plans to be to fail, and then just have to figure something else out. I missed the biggest buck of my life, and the only plan I had that day when I saw that deer was, plan A was, I'm going to hunt. Plan B was, I'm going to pull up to this, or part of plan A was, I'm going to hunt. I'm going to pull up to this area. I'm going to find a spot where I can park my truck on the outside of the area on a fire break. I'm going to walk that fire break in till I find what looks like a good spot, like a feed tree or something of that nature, and I'm going to sit there. That was it. It was raining, or kind of misting, not a heavy rain, light rain. So I walked down a trail for a good 800 yards. I looked off to one side, saw a big oak hammock with a good pine thicket off of it. I said, man, I can get up underneath there and stay dry. I saw some pine trees amongst the oaks, so I climbed my climber up on one. I was dry enough as it sat. Sure enough, outstepped one of the biggest deer I've ever seen to this date, and I missed him at 30 yards with a bow. But it's neither here nor there. Completely my fault. But you just go. And when you get out there and you think that you found, there is no untouched place, no secret spot. You'll be a mile deep off the trail through the thickest stuff, turn around, sit down, find a beer can. Somebody else's trash. And then you got the guys that find spots that are so secret, even the deer don't know they're there. So, and you don't want to be that guy either. So, my thing is, with public land, there's no sense, you're wasting breath complaining about seeing people. It's public land. If you don't want to see other people, put in my opinion, probably harder work of door knocking and finding a piece of private that you can get permission to lease or to hunt on for work or whatever, so that you can lock down a piece. And then the hard part there is finding a piece, and then finding a piece that's worth hunting on. So it's doable. I've done it before, but it's not. Sometimes you just gotta get lucky. But public land is public land. Nobody goes to Walmart and complains because somebody's in the same aisle there, and people are expected to be there. If you're hunting public land and you hunt areas that are harder to access, you want to see less people, hunt public land that has one access point, and be willing to go further than everyone else. But even when you do that, you're still going to see people because somebody else is going to be willing to go just as far as you did and then maybe a little further. That single point of entry, you're all coming and going from the one spot, so you can kind of get off of that main thoroughfare and not have to see people, but you're going to see them when you park. So I guess that's got its pros and cons. You get into a spot where there's one point of entry and plenty of good roads throughout, people can split up a little better. But hunting down here in Florida, I have yet to see another hunter like walk up underneath me. I've been that guy, and then turn around and walked out because I sat, went in for an afternoon hunt and somebody sat all day, didn't know they were there. And that's the courtesy thing, man. You see it, turn around and get the heck out of Dodge. If you're going to complain about overcrowding on public land and you're not showing up to meetings to advocate for hunting and fishing, then you're doing all of us a disservice because you're not helping keep hunting alive in any way whatsoever. You're actively dissuading people. Your attitude, just having a shit attitude about stuff like that, I can't stand it, man. It's a crybaby mentality, in my opinion, and I don't like that. We're all supposed to be men here, right? Grown-ups, adults. We all have the right to access these public areas. So quit whining about it. That's all I got to say about that. Tired of hearing the whining and complaining. You want to find something to blame for seeing people? Blame yourself. Go further. Or don't let it bother you. The late people showing up late will push deer to you. People leaving earlier will push deer to you. Hunt the wind, sit in the shade. That's all I got. I'm going to hang out here for a little bit. You guys want to bring any more comments in? We'll have a little discussion. Other than that, that's it for the recording. Tyke is that Tyke? Tyke's the worst guy in the United States. I heard Jake was a terrible client. Can't shoot for crap. Shoots the wrong animals. I can't make a single, hardly half a word out of what Dan's saying. Oh, Lordy. It's about time for me to take my butt to bed. This storm is kicking off out here, and it's getting, I don't know if you guys can hear it pouring. Glad I got them chickens in the coop before the rain got real bad. Yeah, Dan doesn't know. You're right, Doug. Dan has no idea what he's saying either. It's just a bunch of mumble jumble craziness. Well, catch y'all next week.